Hello, I'm Deb Coviello, the Drop-In CEO, and I want to thank you again for joining us on another episode where week after week I get to speak to the most fantastic leaders and bring their insights to you. And along the way, I know they're going to inspire you. And just know I show up every week here because I sincerely care about providing you the tools and the insights for every C-suite leader to navigate their challenges and opportunities with confidence. And this week, I am sincerely honored to have the company of Tom Oliver, who is a dynamic executive leader who builds teams for extraordinary results. And he has had numerous roles, and we're going to get into it in global leadership in various industries such as nutritional food products, medical devices, consumer products, agriculture, and most importantly, he is known as a leader of character. He is recognized as an expert in building multi-million dollar product brands and leading complex organizations and teams. He's had board of director and advisory board experiences across numerous entities. He's going to share this amazing backstory and career journey. But let me have the honor, Tom, of welcoming you onto the show.
Well, thank you very much, Deb, and thank you for putting this together. And thank you for the previous podcasts because I have listened to them and learned myself as I'm still learning and growing and improving myself. So thank you for putting these together, and I've enjoyed the ones before this one.
And I mean, that's music to my heart. And I sincerely appreciate again. I am now up to about 460 episodes. It is my joy, it is my thrill, it is my creative soul of being able to just meet amazing people like yourself, learning something new, staying close to the trends so that I can be in service to C-suite leaders as well. And of course, listeners, listeners out there, where I'm talking to you now, you have been the energy behind me continuing to do this work. And I had the good fortune of being introduced to Tom and his amazing story. And so we're going to now revert back to you, Tom, and your history and your career and your experiences are so expansive. But I would love really to start with your origin story, your backstory, your humble beginnings, and then we'll get into the rest of it. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a Army brat. My dad was in the Army. We moved every couple of years. So I went to three different elementary schools, two different high schools, but also got to live in Japan for almost 4 years as a kid in elementary school. But I learned the duty, honor, country from my dad in the Army and values. So that kind of set me up. Uh, when I was in the sixth grade, excuse me, when I was in the sixth grade, I saw the opening for the first class at the Air Force Academy and building the campus, Colorado Springs. I always wanted to fly, watching all the old Army movies. So I decided in the sixth grade, that's where I was going to go, and started that day forward getting straight A's, started working on the registrar cadets telling me what I needed to do, such as Eagle Scout, varsity sports, honor roll, honor society, all that community service. So every year I sent away for it. Every year I updated to make sure I was doing all the stuff that I should do. Uh, in between, we were relatively poor. We needed money, and I got into business. So my 13th birthday, my mom surprised me with a big bicycle and said, "Oh, this is for your new paper route I've got for you."
Oh my goodness.
so, so the bike came with a paper route. It was 42 papers way out in the country, and it was like every fifth house spread out.
Mm.
Morning paper early, up every morning at 5 or going. Then I got another route, and I figured out real quick every person receiving the paper is a customer, and some wanted it in the mailbox, some wanted it on the front porch, different places. So I learned quickly if you do take care of the customer, they keep paying you and keep the paper going. Uh,
Mm.
so that quickly expanded to another route I bought and another one. I ended up with 365 daily papers on a bicycle, not
Oh
in a
my.
car, throwing them out the window. So Fortunately, the last one was in a real rich neighborhood. Every single house got the paper versus riding my bike all through the country. So anyway, that was my business. I figured out they like it. The better I treated them, the better they tipped me. And then I could also sell Christmas cards and make more money, and sell Easter cards and make more money. And yeah, I learned business early on, so that got me going. So minus a detour, I didn't make the Air Force Academy first year, disappointing, uh, upset, but my senator called and offered to go to the Merchant Marine Academy for a year, which gave me 24 hours. And when I called back, I said, well, I still want to go to the Air Force Academy. You know, if you would help me get to the Air Force Academy in the next year, I will gladly accept the Merchant Marine Academy. But if I make it, I'd like to transfer then to go to the Air Force. If I don't make it, you have my word, I'll stay through the 4 years at the Merchant Marine Academy. It's through the Navy, ROTC, and then I'll go fly Navy jets. And he said he loves my integrity, he loves what I stand for, and he'd support me. And so while at the Merchant Marine Academy, I kind of kept it low, quiet, and applied with him and had to go do all the testing on the weekends and that kind of stuff. And finished the third trimester, again, straight A's, because I was worried about going to Air Force Academy. And he gave me the acceptance to go to the Air Force Academy. So I left Merchant Marine and started brand new at the Air Force Academy.
So if I could like
Anyways,
go there, I mean, all of that is just bundled up with tremendous um, fortitude and drive to, you made a decision at a very early age, and kudos to you. Sometimes there's a generation of lost souls that just like kind of pass through life and do what's expected or don't make much of themselves. I mean, it almost feels like you knew what you wanted, and everything that you did led up to eventually getting into the Air Force Academy. Were there any other sources of people in your ecosystem that helped you to have that kind of effort? It was just part of your DNA to just go, 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 and go after, even if it was extremely challenging to get into that.
yeah, one is I think I was the oldest of four kids.
Okay.
So part of what I grew up with was I always had to take care of the other three. So, I
Okay.
mean, early on, babysitting my sisters and little brother
Hmm.
and taking care of them. My mother was religious and introduced me to Jesus Christ and what it means to follow. And then the other one was my dad. In a weird way, he taught me more on the character and values, but he had me do everything. He wouldn't do it for me. So I learned if I wanted to do something, I had to go do it myself.
So what really resonates with me is even though parenting is something we choose to do, maybe not always. Sometimes we come into families and have to do the best we can, but it's one of the most noble things that one can do. And one of the things I said, and I used to kind of skip over myself, somebody said, like, what are your ambitions or what are your goals? And I said, well, I don't necessarily think I'm going to become rich and famous, but my greatest legacy is to help my children become productive citizens of society. And it's those tears and those hard conversations and family values and sitting at the table and not letting them weasel out of chores and things like that. And ultimately, they've come back around and recognized those values that we were right. And they are making those responsible decisions. So kudos to your upbringing and the community around you for setting those character frameworks for you.
Yeah, I also had a lot of good mentors,
Uh-huh.
different teachers, a Boy Scout leader, um, even our high school football coach was a junior senior, was a gentleman right out of college, Bobby Ross. And he went on from our high school. We had 2 fabulous years of
Mhm.
unexpected, we're down at the bottom and had 2 great years. And he went on through colleges to national champions and NFL. And now he's in the Coaches Hall of Fame, so
So
really,
again,
really good learning.
that's one of the things I talk about is that, navigating life is challenging onto itself. seek a support system. I don't think I recognized that I needed one because I was of that generation. I can do it myself, and I did quite well. But think about where I would have been had I sought and had a mentor in my life that kind of set me on my way. So again, message to everybody out there. But I'm going to take a detour in our conversation because again, your career, your accomplishments are amazing. But you said it. Ask me about how I used up 8 of my 9 lives flying. So go there, talk about your flying career. And I think you got 1 life left.
No. So, yeah, I was very fortunate to be qualified for pilot training, which is I wanted. And I was so determined to be a pilot, I gave up. My math was a math whiz back in college. I took all the math courses and graduate course. So they wanted me to go and get my PhD in math and go do special projects. And I said, no, I want to go fly airplanes. So, and really, I figured I was already a year behind because I went to Merchant Marine a year. So now it's 5 years of college. So then I did switch to mechanical engineering, did well, graduated, and just before graduation, and I got a full scholarship to go to University of Colorado in mechanical engineering for a year. I said, "Thank you, no, thank you. I want to go fly airplanes." So that's what I did. Uh, there were interesting times. Fortunately enough, was times when both the Academy and the Air Force did a lot of exceptional training. Their standards, their SOPs, they followed a syllabus of stuff you had to do and repeated and repeated. And if you paid attention, you could be excellent. And I was fortunate enough to have good flying skills and honed them. But along the way, there were emergencies that happened. And in those emergencies, I was trained exceptionally well how to handle them. So again, I looked at my instructor pilots that trained me. I looked at my mentors that helped. Uh, but a couple of them were pretty dramatic. Uh, One was we were in when I was in training, T-37, what they call the deep spin mode. And most people didn't live through that. And they never found out in the wreckages, a couple of them, what caused it. So I was up with my instructor. We were doing normal routine stuff, just a normal spin. And we got into the deep spin mode. I tried it a couple of times. It didn't work. He tried a couple of times. It got worse and worse. The ground's approaching. We're in this terrible spin. And he yells, eject, eject, eject. I was laying over to the right on him, and he was up against the side cockpit. Neither one of us could reach the ejection handles. And I could see the ground coming, and all of a sudden it stopped midair, flying straight. And all I see, there was an intervention for me.
Absolutely,
We
because you had
called
about 7 more lives to use.
But we called emergency mechanical failure. We needed a straight in approach. We couldn't maneuver the airplane. We're already low altitude. We didn't want to do anything that would upset it, and flew in and landed. Well, fortunately, because we brought it back, they were able to find out the root cause for these deep spin modes, which was really a lifesaver for others. So yeah,
Oh my
but
God, you're
thank
almost
goodness for the Air
famous
Force.
because of your misfortune. But because of you, I mean, it's about leaving a legacy for those that follow you. That, I mean, maybe they don't
Yeah,
know who you are, but because of your commitment to the craft, you've helped pilots
yeah,
of the future. Oh, wow.
right.
And by the way, my son's best friend, again, I told you before we jumped on the show, David went into the Army. His best friend went to Norwich and is in the Air Force right now as a pilot. So we can empathize
Oh,
and appreciate all the hard work just to even get into such programs. And then the training is so critical for the success. Wow.
yeah. So
And so, like I said, you do need to write a book about all these 8 lives, and hopefully you have many, many more because you have many more people to influence. But let's move back to early days. You get into the academy, you've leveraged all that is offered to you, but then you wound up at the Pentagon. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was enjoying being an instructor pilot through all the different stations and different planes and everything I was going. The Air Force had a special program, and they called it the Air Staff Training Program, and they nominated 50 people a year, and most of them were the fast movers, all going to make major below the zone type of thinking. Come to the Pentagon, assigned to all different departments, both in the Air Force and the government. And so because of my I had an HR degree by then. So I reported to the four-star general for the Air Force personnel. I was in the colonel's group when they had me manage the 50 of us, part of the program. So the beautiful thing is every Wednesday morning, we would hear from one high ranking or government official on what they did for 3 or 4 hours. And it was like going to a university of the Air Force and the military and how the government works. It was, some, can't remember all the departments, but like the FBI and not Homeland Security, but different departments come in and talk, as well as some senators and all, and it was fabulous. And with that, it was a great training then to go back out to the Air Force and do things. So while I was there, we had 8,000 colonels around the world that we managed.
Mhm. We'll take care of this. Yeah.
Excuse me. So then with that, there's 8,000 colonels, and every year 50 get promoted to general. So I got to run the brigadier general board, and also I got to do the senior service selection school for the colonels who went to the Air War College, the Army Naval War College, and National War College, and those are all ranked different. So you had to get your best colonels to go the best. So anyway, it was a huge learning experience in many, many ways.
So again, Air Force Academy, flying jets, planes, and now time with the Pentagon. Again, appreciate your service. Again, my family's in the services. You could have stayed there for some time, but
Right.
you decided to move into the corporate world. And so I'd
Yeah.
love for you to tell us a little bit about that transition, because I think what you've learned in your military career was very transferable to then the corporate career. So tell me a little bit more about Pentagon and the next step.
Okay. So from the Pentagon, I decided that's not what I want to do long term, because
Okay.
you end up going to the Pentagon and serving years in the Pentagon, and that's my inside look at the Pentagon wasn't what I want to do. I'm not a politician. I'm an operations guy.
Okay.
At my heart, people, so people in operations. Um, so I decided to get out. So one of my classmates in the Air Force Academy Alumni Magazine had gotten out. He was executive recruiter, so I called him. Hey Gary, I'm getting out of the Air Force. I'll get a job, and he says, "Well, what's your interview skills?" And I said, "I've never interviewed. I've always been handpicked for all my stuff." And I
You.
said, "Okay."
Okay.
Said,
So,
"Yeah, you'd be in high demand, so let's get a practice interview." So he's got these other three companies: Air Force Academy, Air Force, mechanical engineering, HR. He said, "You'll get a job, no sweat. Let's do a practice one." So the practice one was with General Foods over in Dover, Delaware.
oh, just a
So I
practice.
drove.
Oh my.
So
Okay.
I drove over there, needed a suit and tie and white shirt. So driving over there, I stopped for coffee on the way and hit the railroad track bumps and spilled my coffee on my new white shirt and tie, and went to the interview. It was kind of a good icebreaker. The
To
interview.
make light of misfortune, because like you say, it's about a conversation, it's not Q and A. Icebreakers are a wonderful interview strategy.
Yeah. Well, I had one with me all day. So, uh, so at the end of the day, I interviewed and talked. We got tours, and when they said, "Hey, before you drive back, why don't you stop in the lobby here for a minute?" So I thought, "Oh, I'm going to get some goody treats to take with me." They came out with an offer letter for more than I thought I'd ever make coming out of the Air Force. And I called Gary and said, "Oh, guess what? I'm taking this job." So,
Oh, well, kudos,
that's
kudos
how
to
I
you.
got it. Yeah, so that's how I got started as a packaging line supervisor at General Foods. Uh,
But the interesting
but
thing is your career seems to go in and out. You were always pulled. Maybe you didn't have too many interviews, it seems like, except for this one. You just got pulled and pulled and pulled into the next opportunity. But I think a general theme, as I've looked at your extensive background, is that you just seem to excel in, I would say, turnaround, restructuring, crisis management, change management, leadership development. You can check the box on every CEO skill that you need and being a sought out leader. But what I would really love to know is it almost seems that every situation was a bit of a crisis or a turnaround that it just seems to come your way. So you started out at General Foods, but there's a crisis sometime
yeah,
thereafter. I'd love for you to share a little bit because I think what's important for my listeners is um, what you learned and how you got through it and what can others learn from your
right.
experiences.
Yeah. So I got promoted then at Dover to run Baker's Chocolate and did well there. First day on the job, we had a big explosion. And they said, "Oh, that's a sound barrier." And I said, "No, that's an explosion." And got by way to fire. We got it going quickly in 3 days, working around the clock with my team back there and some help from engineering and all. But promoted to go to Modesto and then to run some of the big cereal plants in Battle Creek, Michigan. So got a call from Nabisco and they needed some help. And they had 13 bakeries running cookies and crackers. And their headquarters was about 40 miles from this plant in New Jersey. And they were upset because all the visitors coming to corporate wanted to see the plant and it was a mess. So, and lowest score. So they did a neat thing for all divisions, all companies. Quarterly, they had a 1 page on scoring your plant for cost, quality, uh, uh, delivery schedule, all the KPIs that you'd want, and they'd
Right.
score them. And everybody then would get up and explain their 1 page and where they ranked as far as cost per case and delivery and that type of stuff. So uh, we were 13th of 13. So they wanted to get it turned around. Well, we had union problems, we had mafia problems in different areas. We had, you name it, drugs, needed a pretty big cleanup. Uh, I knew there was a way because I was a process facilitator, trained process facilitator from earlier with General Foods. So in my process thinking, it's always about the team members and leaders and the process. So they ran 4 departments and three departments of the actual production, and they didn't talk to each other. So I knew the department things didn't work. You had department managers, they tried to do for their thing, they didn't manage. So I kept talking to my Jim from HR, John from production, and Tim from my engineering, and kept saying, "We got to do this different. We got to do it." And we struggled looking at the volumes and the people. And I said, "We got to do a process team where they're responsible from beginning to end." Right now, it's not, have all these departments that all come up to the production manager and he runs around every day because everybody's blaming everybody else. So it's got to put a stop. So we kept trying to figure it out. And then finally, I was saying, well, let's look at the processes. We can look at the cracker process, which is different from cookie process. And then we had what we called the assorted team. So what's Fig Newtons? That wasn't really a cookie or a cracker, but we did chocolate covered marshmallows. We did animal crackers. We did sugar wafers in a separate building. So it was like, okay. So I was telling them, well, let's try to separate into these 3 processes. And then John comes in one morning all excited and he said he figured it out. He said, well, we can move the two laminators and the big ovens. These ovens are a football field length, 6 feet wide, 300 feet long. And then they go on these conveyors to the packing. So we figured out if we could just swap, we were moving one belt, cleaning it anyway. We could swap two belts, two laminators, move conveyors. So then I have 4 huge oven lines for cookies, 4 huge oven lines for crackers, and then at the end, Fig Newtons, and then the building outside for the assorted. So then with the switch in the conveyors, we're able to package all the cookies on one floor or crackers on another floor. And then we had the teams, we assigned production managers for the 3 different teams and talked to the employee. Most of them managers and employees had never been to the other departments. So the guys mixing the dough had never seen what it's like at the end of the oven after it's cooked or trying to package. People in packaging have no idea where all these cookies and crackers are coming from.
What I
So,
find fascinating about this is it's so simple, but um, sometimes leaders can't see this because looking at humans, their knowledge, their expertise, and then looking at the interaction with the processes, looking at that dynamic, and then across humans. If you look at how the people between the departments are interacting with each other, and in your case, they weren't, it was left up to the
right.
leadership to steer the ship versus being empowered. And then, I mean, the last point I want to make is that you say you recognize the problem, you kind of pinpointed the root cause, and then you asked for people's opinion, and they said, I've got it. Leave it to your people. You don't have to be the smartest person. Just understand, I think I see the big picture, and then they'll come with the ideas. So
Yes,
turnarounds and transformations really rely on a leader that focuses on the people first and their gifts and trying to get to the root cause and then just let things happen. And amazing
so that's what
accomplishments.
I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually in turnarounds, I don't know the answer. I know how to ask the people and work all levels. And it's not the direct reports, it's the people reporting to them. It's the first line supervisors, because I've done that. And
Hmm.
it's the hourly employees, start talking and listening. And so what I say is you got to listen and learn, and then you got to improve and lead,
Mm.
but takes that leadership then to actually make the decisions and move forward. So most of the places, I'm a quick learner, but they know the answers. They know how we can improve.
Yeah, and sometimes the leadership or the circumstances just don't allow the people or give them a voice. They'll just say, let's just keep getting the results. And unfortunately, maybe you'll get the results some quarters. In this case, they were like 13 out of 13. You better do something
Right.
different. And in they bring Tom to turn around the business. But your work didn't stop at
Yeah.
Nabisco. You moved on to turn around another company. So maybe tell us a little bit about Dole Food.
Yeah. Doleful was a huge pineapple plantation on the southernmost island in the Philippines. Most people think Philippine Manila. Manila's on the top northern islands.
Mhm.
Think there's 7,000 islands, and down the southern one is where we were. It was pretty much off limit to Americans because of the danger with the terrorists.
Mm.
So pretty much we were kept to ourselves, but 30,000 acres of pineapple, 10,000 employees. Actually, we self-contained, we ran everything. So I got raw materials in, and we actually had like 15 plants. I had 4 huge Liberty ship steam engines that generate electricity. We had our own water treatment plant for spring water. We had our own shipping dock. We had, I didn't have corrugated boxes, so I had a corrugated box plant. We didn't have labels, so we
What
did
was
our own label.
what was the mission, if I could just interject? Again, you've got this great career, but every time you show up at a company, it's like mission impossible. So what was your mission for Dole?
It was, they did about 20 million cases of canned pineapple,
Okay.
and the cost had been going up for 8 years. And the owner, Mr. Murdoch, wanted to doing what they've been doing. They wanted to get the cost per case lowered. So and so my boss had run it. He was there 4 years and then he ran it from the States for 4 years. And he was under the gun to lower it. So he told me, it was like $12 a box cost. If I could lower it a half a penny would be great. So
Okay.
again, I took on the challenge. I said, "Oh, I can do this." Yeah.
Okay, I
So,
know about
uh,
pineapples. Yeah, right. But I can do this. So,
canned pineapple,
so what did you and the
making
team do?
cans.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
So what did you and the team eventually come up with and what was the impact?
Yeah. So again, process wise, process
Okay.
thinking. How do you streamline the process? So they ran all the canned pineapple and fresh pineapple together. So the fresh pineapple would come from the field all the way to the cannery.
Hmm.
They'd sort out if it was good enough for fresh. They put it back in another truck, haul it off to the fresh packing plant. Uh, Lack of communication. Uh, so that was bruising up the fresh pineapple. The fresh pineapple we shipped refrigerated up to Tokyo, and the Japanese standards on you know one, the box count wasn't right. We had six in a box, five in a box, and you had to have all the SKUs right. Um, and then they were bruised, that kind of stuff. Then on the canned pineapple, it was more work. So I broke out, we'd go through and harvest for fresh for the good pineapple, treated them special, took them to the packing shed. And then when they packed, right there, every shift, every container, they shipped pack the containers right at the packing. So then had the supervisor sign off that they had counted the boxes correctly because they cost, when it got Tokyo, the process again, the complaint would go from the sales team on the dock to the sales manager to the president of Dole Japan to me to go down to the packing ag guy to the packing shed and say that the count was wrong, which was now 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. So we had one phone line, period. So we were
Wow.
able to put in a satellite phone system so I could have six lines instead of one, but it was instantaneous dialing direct to Tokyo, Thailand, the headquarters in both San Francisco and LA. So if it didn't work right, the sales guy on the shipping dock could pick up and call and talk to my shipping container supervisor.
So as we talk, this all comes down to communication and how can we enable the communication up, down, and sideways
Yeah.
from the supply chain all the way to the customer.
So then we knew immediately how to improve. So we tremendously improved our quality defects and count defects for Tokyo. And then with that, we really focused on the just streamlining running the canned pineapple. And once we did that, I also eliminated like 3,500 jobs because everybody had worried about, we had 20 days sick leave. Everybody's worried about how many people are going to show up sick on which days, like Fridays or Mondays.
Hmm.
And so they overstaffed for the whole week to take care of when there was a lot of absenteeism. So we said, no, we'll figure out a way to handle absenteeism. We need to get the crew size right for what you need to run. And then once we separated the fresh and can, that reduced the head count also. So we ended up huge impact. Again, how do I handle it? So I had the hospital reported to me. We had a 100-bed hospital, 7 surgeons. I was
What?
running our
But
own.
but you're
Yeah.
running a Dole plant or operation and a hospital?
Hospital, schools, international school, regular local schools, fire department, security.
Wait, that all came under your jurisdiction as well?
Yeah, that was everything. I ran everything on the whole entire plantation operations.
Okay, so
Uh,
again, before
so
the
we
show,
have
we talked
these.
about you need to write a book. You left out that chapter. I did not know that. Don't forget these details. Amazing. My God, you ran a city.
So then we
Wow.
had all these people reporting to sick call because they wanted a day off. But the way it was, you couldn't get the day off unless the doctor signed you were sick that day and you could get the sick day off. So I was driving to work in my pickup and kept seeing all these people outside the hospital. And some days it would be big lines. So I get into my staff meeting and saying, why in the world? And they say, oh, because if they want to be off on Monday or Friday, they got to go get their sick. Well, we ran pretty much 7 days a week. Salaried were 6 days a week. So I said, well, why can they? Well, they get 20 sick days a year. And I said, oh, so how can we improve this so we can run the operations without having this huge burden of trying to figure out how many people are going to show up at work? One guy says, well, we could put tents out to keep them in the shade while they're waiting. And somebody else said, oh, we can make sure they got water while they're waiting. I said, no, how do we eliminate the problem? I
Wow.
said, well, the doctor's signing the slips. Who do they report to? Oh, me. Okay. Well, I'm going to put out a new directive for the doctors that if somebody has a stomach issue or a sinus issue, they're going to have 7 days off of work. And it's whoa. And they say, okay, write me up a policy. I'll get it over to the hospital
Mhm.
and they'll start doing it. Well, the word got out faster than I could get the policy to the hospital almost the
Mhm.
same day. Nobody showed up for sick because if you got twice and you got 7 days, the third 7 days would put you over your 20 days. And they'd
Mm.
lose pay. So quickly, everybody figured better show up for work.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that
Except
because sometimes the ecosystem just grows and the policies and the procedures just become part of the fabric or the culture. And then it becomes, well, that's just always the way it is or has been. And so we come to this level of acceptance. And so when we bring in an outsider that has this mission, sometimes we just have to go back to some of the fundamental practices that have been in place. Maybe there was a purpose or a time for such a policy. Again, providing care for the workers, it's important. But re-examining and questioning everything is what leaders should do. And if they are valid, keep them. If not, a way to communicate the change. And eventually it's going to change the behavior and the response you get. Amazing story. But what I want to do is maybe take us in another direction. I know you've worked for some amazing companies and done some similar turnaround work, but the journey then starts going into a place of entrepreneurship. You talk about in your bio starting a medical device company, which led to other companies. And I would love to give you an opportunity about what transitioned you into now. I'm going to do it myself. And any challenges, challenges along the way that you want to share with, again, multiple entities that you um, dabbled in.
so to me, it's still about the leadership. And, Patrick Lencioni put out a podcast the other day I listened to, and they said the big new 3-letter word that's magic for everybody today on how to succeed. 3-letter word is try, Try. That people just don't try. It's
Okay.
like, give me the opportunity, I'll go try. So uh,
I
when
like
we
that.
sold Power Bar,
Uh-huh.
huh?
No, I like that try
So,
because all we have to do is try and set our mind to something. I mean, going back to your early days, I said, I'm going to be a pilot. I want to go to the Air Force Academy. All you did was try and put your best foot forward, and look what happened. So we
yeah.
own the first step. We have to try.
Yes. So when I left Power Bar, then I had like 3 different job opportunities, and one of them was a absolute startup. They had a patent and an idea, and kind of prototype product that didn't work. So I had sprained my ankle really bad running a Mountain Diablo, really ripped it bad, and we were selling Power Bar for like months on end. So every night, I knew he'd put it up in the air, put, frozen peas on it, whatever. It'd be down in the morning. Actually went back, got my combat boots out, strapped it on really tight so my ankle wouldn't swell. And then be in such pain when I got home at night, undo my thing, get it propped up again. Well, this was on, the idea was extreme cooling, high-speed cooling and cyclic compression, had a squeeze, release, and massaging. And I saw this and thought, if I just had this when I had sprained my ankle, I could have been back in really quick. So that got my interest. And I thought of all the people with sprained ankles, sprained wrists, shoulders out, uh, how much we could really help mankind and that type
Mhm.
of stuff. Well, coming from Power was with all the athletes. So I was just thinking, well, we can start with the athletes. So one is we had to go product development and how to design a product. So engineers working on the control unit. And then we only had one simple thing for the leg. And we were saying, well, we need other ones for body parts. So one of the engineers said, well, that's my wife is a seamstress, so she gets the paper patterns, and if you put it together, sew it, you get this shape.
Mhm.
So that's why. So we actually hired a really great seamstress that did patterns,
Wow.
and she did patterns so we could do wrist, elbow, shoulder, ankle, different products that we really expanded what we did. Then it was how to get, once we started getting the product, is how do we get it out to sell it? Well, I used the Power Bar model. Through Power Bar, we sold a lot of the energy performance bars to the strength and conditioning coaches at the pro teams and the colleges. So
Mhm.
we had the list of everybody to go to. So I started calling them and asked them to give me the name of the athletic trainer, because the athletic trainer was the ones that got the people injured, recovered faster.
Mhm.
And so that's what we did. We started going after athletic trainers. Huge success. They did it. San Francisco Giants tried it for a season, and they actually wrote a paper for us. He gets it every different injuries, got them back in half of the amount of games they would have missed. And then the pro football teams. So if you got an injured multi-million-dollar player, you want them out 6 games or do you want them out 3 games? There's money. So we just
Wow.
started. So football and then basketball, uh, just going like wildfire. And I went from, of course, the pro teams to the colleges. We sold a ton to the colleges and then high schools. Because, particularly in Texas where football's pretty big.
I mean, for those of you
Colleges.
watching, for those of you watching on the YouTube channel that this is coming, my mouth is like dropping like a fish here because I mean, everything you touch, you just touch it and say, what's the problem? What's the root cause here? What smart people do I need around me? And then boom, turn around, creation, something from nothing. And you just keep doing this over and over
So,
again.
yeah, again, it's so fun for me, that it's fun to see companies grow, but to me, it's more to see people's eyes light up. I'm trying to mentor my people that work for me. I try to train them. And when they finally get something, their eyes light up and it's like they get it. And then that's what excites me, individually, one by one, seeing people's eyes light up, or even a group training or presentation. If you can get to the individuals and then see them light up, that's what lights me up, so
Yeah, I
that's
mean, your brand and
exciting.
it is. I mean, when you say certain words, I get excited too because way back when I started my business, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew technically what I was good at. And back in the day, I'm starting to learn what marketing is, branding is, and they say, what 3 words describe who you are or what you do? And the 3 words were lift, light, and lead. And it
Uh,
doesn't matter what the order is. And the interesting thing was, I didn't know how to market that. So I kind of tucked it away and came up with different brand messaging. But now I've brought them back. When you talk about it's lifting others, it's looking at the people, you're in service to the people. shining a light on their gifts, but it's akin to also and shine a light on their gifts and then watch them
Yeah.
light up. Oh my God, it's the
Yes.
greatest thrill. And that's how we leave our legacy with future leaders. And again, so that's why I'm so grateful for your stories because it's about the legacy we do. I mean, yes, people make money and remember the products and how you've helped people, but it's those that you've touched along the way that are going to remember because of Tom Oliver. I got that promotion or I changed my mindset. And we haven't really even talked too much about the people that you've seen their eyes light up. Is there a
Mhm.
story about somebody you mentored or was in your care, a particular company, where through your work together, you impacted a person in a significant way?
Yeah, there's been a couple. Needed a CF power bar. What Brian brought me in, and that's another whole story. I got some good recruiting stories, and twice I was number two and ended up being number one, and both of them were the greatest jobs I've had. So, don't give up. Keep trying. Even if you get a no, go for it. So,
Okay.
uh, but with that, one of we needed a CFO at Power Bar. And so one of the names we came up with was a gentleman that worked with me down at Dole Food Company down in Los Angeles in the headquarters. And all I remember was the day they walked down, he packed up his personal belongings and they walked him out. So Brian was saying, we got to interview guys. We got to interview this guy. I said, wait, time out. Let me get the backstory pretty quick.
Okay.
So I called it, yeah, so I called down the execs at Dole that I knew that I was still in contact with. And uh, the reason they walked him out is he joined another competitor to Dole. So they didn't want to, they gave us 2 weeks notice and they said, no,
Uh-uh.
go into a
That's
competitor.
happened to me. They've walked
So I
me
said,
out
well,
because of that.
so that's that's good news. So he is a good guy. I'd worked with him before, so I brought him in, and he was our CFO. Saw us through the sale of the company and stayed in for the financial stuff with Nabisco for a bit. But I mean, Nestle. So he's gone on and he's done not only food company, he's done a lot of software startups, and he's into startups and particularly in the Bay Area, different startups and everything. Then he's jumped back to protein bars and protein shakes, and then he's back into software. Just a fabulous career. So yeah, that goes in circles. My recruiting manager at Power Bar. She was also a fabulous person at recruiting, and we support her. Now she's now like one of the number one realtors in the Bay Area. She's a huge,
Wow.
tremendous realtor. Uh, one of my design guys that helped at Game Ready. He went off to design school back on the East Coast, came back, and now he's got his own design company, but works a heck of a lot with medical devices. So he's
Mm.
got a huge career as well. So yeah, you treat people right and help them grow and yeah, send them on their way.
So as we start bringing this to a close, and it's not closure of the chapters. It's like, what's the next chapter that you're writing? Because again, I'm going to get on you. You need to have this book in you somehow transcribed into your autobiography because we need to capture your legacy, the lessons learned for your future. But as we think about the next chapter for you, who do you want to connect with? What do you want to do next?
Yeah, so I want to help people grow, help companies grow,
Mm,
and pretty excited to do that. I'm looking at possibly a COO job. Uh,
mhm,
Middle-sized company.
mm,
Uh, I could do for larger company, but skill sets, I'm about operations and people and
mm.
making improvements.
And
So
that's near and
that's
dear
what
to
I'm
my
looking.
heart too, because that's exactly my sweet spot. I love the medium-sized companies. They have such a can-do attitude. They're open to new ideas, and then it's how can you help them really, really succeed. So Tom, this has been a fabulous interview. I'm so grateful to know you. And for my listeners, I absolutely want you to connect with him, Tom Oliver. He's, on LinkedIn. But Tom, is there any last words or thoughts that you want to share with our community before we bring this to a close?
Yeah, listen to Deb's podcast because they're got a lot of interesting people. The other one is never give up. You know, set your mind and then figure out how to go do it. Just keep trying and don't give up. Figure out a way. Just go do it
Oh, so
and have
inspirational.
have and have fun.
And from what I see and your accomplishments and even the background there, you're accomplished, you've had fun, you've impacted people's lives. You've also inspired me, despite uncertainty, to keep going with what I'm doing, both in service to others as well as getting my voice out there. So I want to thank you so much, Tom, for dropping in on the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Deb, and look forward to hearing others. Thank you.